We are back with another edition of What's Next Longevity Deal Talk. We're glad to have you spend time with us, and we aim to make it time well spent. This edition is made possible by AAMBA, providing technology to enable responsive, personalized, and effective care. Discover how AAMBA can benefit your facility, your residents, their families, and caregivers. It's a company you'll want to partner with to improve health and wellness. Ready to learn more? Visit ambahealth.com. Let's dive into Deal Talk. Lots to chat about with some great guests in store. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Mary Furlong. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Fred. It's been a busy January, starting with CES, where AARP'sAmelia had a show-stopping presence.
And we'll have Amelia Hay from the AgeTech Collaborative at AARP with us, Laurie Orlov from Aging and Health Technology Watch, where she is Principal Analyst, will be here to tell everyone about her latest research titled Market Overview 2025, Technology for Aging. But first, we are going to turn to Dan Hermann, President and CEO at Ziegler, who was very busy at the January JP Morgan Healthcare Conference in San Francisco. Mary?
And Dan, I know you had other travels in January as well, so we're so appreciative of you taking time with us today on Longevity Deal Talk. I had the privilege of being there at the Ziegler reception at JP Morgan Health, and I know you had a very full calendar. Let's start with your impressions of what's going on in senior housing and healthcare. What trends are you seeing?
Thanks, Marion. Glad to be on in senior housing and healthcare, and we'll say senior living and care or senior housing and care a number of times. You're correct. Since I was at the JP Morgan conference and with our Ziegler team members, I was actually then at the Lutheran Services of America conference with 30 plus CEOs in the business on the not-for-profit side. And then I literally just landed from being at the American Seniors Housing Association, which is the association of the more for-profit, but a handful of not-for-profits, independent living, assisted living, and memory care operators. So that's all been in the last 2 weeks. And the themes that do tie in, of course, to Deal Talk and AgeTech and longevity are that occupancy is up across all settings of senior living and care. That's been reported by Nick and the Senior Care Investor and us and others, but it's consistent and continues and is causing there to be a very positive feeling from an operating perspective, because occupancy can't cure all ills unless you have very weak reimbursement on the nursing side. And so as occupancy continues to increase and all of the operators, owners, and developers realize it takes on average 20 months to 24 months for new units to open, that there's a clear undersupply in the market. And NIC, which is the National Investment Center that provides data for, or that is the leading research platform for senior living and care, and in fact, our former head of research, Lisa McCracken, is now their head of research, has been projecting a shortage of 800,000 senior housing units simply to maintain today's current penetration rates of approximately 10%. Only 10% of age and income qualified, that's key, age and income qualified, that are in senior housing. And just in the top 100 markets, there's more than 1.1 million of senior housing units. So with the demographic growth that's very clear, there's clearly going to be a shortage. So that's causing people to get excited about opportunity. That market, the private sector for-profit market, needs short-term interest rates to come down a bit more, or needs rent rates to move up a bit more to drive more cash flow to support the debt load on new development, because construction costs did also go up. So it presents a great opportunity for the best operators to add supply, and they have the best relationships with the credit markets. It's also a great opportunity for the not-for-profit sector that taps tax-exempt bonds, which is easier to access for the high-quality operators and multi-facility providers around the country. You have one in the Bay Area, or two, for example, that are large systems called Human Good and Front Porch. They're both rated, highly rated. They have ample access to capital. As two examples to move forward on expansion. So we have not-for-profits expanding for-profits looking for new locations along with not-for-profits, and then a significant amount of M&A activity as occupancy and financial performance continues to increase. So very positive there. The more supply there is, lends itself, especially new construction, to the incorporation of technologies and innovative service models as part of the new development. So it's exciting when you're developing new to weave in the newest resident engagement, simple things like point of sale in dining, but with more handheld devices. You'll see all the new locations have large TV screens in the entryway, and then that links into resident engagement platforms in their units. And then as you move towards healthcare, assisted living, memory care, and then skilled nursing, if they have it, you get it's a great opportunity to weave in the most advanced resident assistant tools around fall prevention, around clinical activities, around vitals. There's so many RPM-related devices that allow you to be able to measure your vitals very quickly. And then if they do have nursing, which would be in a life plan community, CCRC, or skilled nursing, lots of different technology being woven in. Now, that's not new construction unless it's a CCRC, but a lot of clinical related. So it's an exciting time. So at the ASHA meeting, you had a number of tech-related vendors, and I could rattle off 20 names, but I won't here, with their sales team member or CEOs or very senior management there in active conversations with all the operators. And of course, some landing sales. Now on the operator side, this is an important comment to all of the folks looking to sell into senior living and care, and this applies to health systems and to industry. Folks get nervous about point solutions and some people are first movers, some aren't, some are fast followers, some wait, but they don't want to get burned by a point solution that cannot deliver on their promise, or they reach a position of profitability to sustain and not disrupt the service you promised them by later failing, or we know there's mergers or roll-ups or being rolled up in a way where the service changes. So the owners are all astute enough to know that the companies start out and get funded by venture capital that friends and family, and then venture. They know that there's losses until they reach break even, but they don't want to get burned testing. So that's something to keep in mind. That's why in any sector that starts to mature, people stand there and say, and I was with one big operator saying, I need to stop using so many point solutions. I need to figure out one macro platform that I can tap into because I'm dealing with too many systems, even though the ideas are great. For all the operators listening, you need to keep all these themes in mind. But that doesn't mean you can't get out and sell the 10, 20, 30 in your region and grow from there. You just need to keep these themes in mind. So I'll stop there and let you go to the next question, but they all tend to link to this mega trend of demographics are powerful, occupancy is up, financial performance is up, capital's available in certain pockets are very available, and then there's ongoing consolidation along the way, so there's a lot of M&A activity.
That was good advice to the entrepreneurs too. So, Fred.
Dan, what can you tell us about some of the deals, the M&A stuff you were talking about that you've been involved with? What can you tell us about them and how they're coming together?
Sure. Ziegler has over 100 investment banking professionals working across senior living and care, real estate financings, and M&A. So real estate settings where you use debt capital and equity capital, and then 50 folks spending their time in healthcare investment banking, senior living care, AgeTech, and sell-side M&A and capital raising. So we're crossing the whole spectrum, and then as you two know, we then wrap around that our Ziegler linkage funds that have invested in 35 companies serving that. So I'm going to roll through the deal. So I'll stay on senior living and care first, where we have just completed numerous financings for large, medium or large expansions of not-for-profit senior living and care, typically CCRC settings or life plan community settings, where they already have their campus in place. They don't have the huge aggravation of new zoning, which, as you two know, in California is extremely difficult. And so we've done transactions going from 25 to 50 up to 100, 200, 300 million. We have a $600 million new campus coming up in New York that, again, is independent living driven. So the common theme on all of those is additional independent living units with pre-zoned campuses or easy to get the zoning because they're existing, high hospitality new units, modernization of resident areas, incorporation of technology, addition of AL or memory care, and modernization of nursing, typically to single room occupancy and a very wellness-centric model. So that's the real estate of IL memory care. A number of transactions on the private sector for-profit side that were M&A related, not as much new construction for the reasons I've said, and then a significant amount of M&A in the skilled nursing setting. So in that setting, like it or not, the not-for-profits have been releasing or selling any of their communities or campuses that are heavy nursing-centric. The buyers of those properties have been the for-profit market and specialty nursing home operators that are able to generate or survive and be profitable with scale, typically regionally focused. And then they're bringing ancillary services of pharmacy, therapy, value-based care, technology platforms, staffing, food service, and so on, to those nursing home properties. That will gradually play out, and tied to all of the news and noise in Washington right now, freestanding skilled nursing tends to average 70 to 75% Medicaid. That's important to remember. When you have low reimbursement, you need to figure out economics in a macro way, and that includes all the ancillary service lines that I mentioned that they're often co-owners of or owners of. Then in the healthcare investment banking arena, we've had transactions with numerous companies in the revenue cycle area, in the home care, home health, hospice area, which is a huge growth area in the private sector market, ranging from dozens and dozens and hundreds of mom and pops around the country. But of course, they roll up into platforms, and we're doing sell-side transactions in the $25 to $250 million range in that sector. And as all of those organizations are looking to scale, create concentrated scale in usually in metropolitan markets, and bring technology. And as part of that and related to that, there is a growing, rapidly growing platforms in physician and nurse practitioner business models and companies that are providing physician nurse practitioner services to the AL and memory care, in particular in the private sector, senior housing where they don't have skilled nursing, to sustain the residents in their homes longer, in their units longer. It can be an IL also, but it's heavily in AL and memory care. And again, I'm not naming names on this call unless you'd like me to, but there is one large platform that our Ziegler linkage funds are an investor in, named Kurana, who was out at ASHA, and they're in dozens of states now with that model. And then you'll find regional players that grow up in a region. There's an organization named Manza here in Chicago that's grown up and is serving a lot of communities around Illinois and surrounding states, because there was a need. There was a need to bring healthcare physician practices or services to the units. The people, when they come in, the residents would have existing physician relationships that they would be driving to, that over time start to become cumbersome. So you can imagine the efficiency if you can have a nurse practitioner or physician making rounds in one building when it's your physician, or in combination with the main physician. So that's a big area. Then when we get to AI, AI is growing, in a way where it's principally embedded with many companies that we, the three of us on this call, would know. But they're gradually adding AI elements into their service models. There's 2 leaders in fall prevention that are both AI driven. So you go AI enabled or AI driven, and that revolves around imaging and assessing residents for fall prevention, fall prevention techniques, and they absolutely work. You just have to incorporate it properly into your workflow. And then on all the resident engagement, that sector is generally rolled up, and we've done transactions in that space where people have created scale, and now they're serving one company's up to 2,300 locations, and others up to 600 locations, where they had started with 50, and then 75, and then 100, and then 300. And when they come together, all of a sudden they've got some very meaningful scale. So we see a lot in that space. Then we have some AI that's definitely, well, one company's definitely brought AI into resident engagement with a focus on fostering resident connectivity right when they enter, so they have awareness of all the other folks that are at their community that they would match up with. And that's just from simply filling out a questionnaire and then understanding what all their likes and dislikes are. And that's just a piece of it, but it really works. And then you get to labor. So labor's, we need to extend labor with AI tools. And we have one of our portfolio companies is utilizing AI for identification of appropriate employees, additional recruitment, and then retention. Now that comes from a pretty rigorous questionnaire, but done correctly, it really does work. And now that company has providers in one market pooling together and working together in the Cleveland market, sharing information through that platform to direct the folks to the right provider. So that's pretty neat use. So a lot going on in the labor area. So I know you asked about deals, and I'm jumping to uses again, but the deals are happening in those spaces. And then you can expect to see roll-ups in RPM for sure, which needs to happen because there's lots of RPM companies that are not, that have difficulty making money because it needs to be a scaled business. And then we're seeing, we saw the roll-ups in resident-centered care. I'll stop there for a minute and let you ask additional questions.
I saw the physician practice services because the local dentist is now offering services inside assisted living. So for just the reasons you said. So what insights can you give to our audience about what investors and entrepreneurs might want to focus on this year? And any comments about Washington and new changes?
I thought we only had 15 minutes.
Go ahead.
On Washington, let me do that first. Obviously, we can all follow that daily. Have your news feed that you prefer and track. There'll be enormous amount of activity. So we all know that's happening as we speak. And we'll just have to all react and respond without getting into the big political debates. But it's going to lead to discussion, that is for sure, around many of the topics that I noted when I said 75% Medicaid for skilled nursing, and every person in the country that's in the business would tell you Medicaid reimbursement is not sufficient for operating. Everyone's below cost and has to make money another way. So what's the answer? To increase reimbursement or to figure out how to not have so many people on Medicaid? I always poll people and say, does everyone know that to the nearest 10 million, how many people are on the Medicaid rolls in the country? And our country is 340 million, the answer is 70 million. It got up to 90 million during the pandemic. So people are trying to solve the economic challenges of that while folks are aging in place and needing to reside in a setting or in a home. So that's a mega trend on how can we serve more people in their home if they're dual eligible versus more expensive setting of skilled nursing. No question on that. And that ties into the value-based care and a number of the companies you interact with. So that's just one example of one of dozens of topics related to senior care in AgeTech coming out of Washington. And my answer to folks, Mary, is I would just pay attention, but the theme's going to be you ask them to look at cost, and we're going to look at costs. And then all of us say, oh, you mean costs in that area too? Right? And that's what's going to happen in every case. So then go back to what advice do I have to entrepreneurs, and say that one more time besides just advice.
What insights for entrepreneurs and investors? Where would you suggest they focus?
So AI is popular, and I would, it's so easy to say AI. It's like saying in our beer world, saying IPA. It just is an easy, fun word to say, and IPA means India Pale Ale. Well, you could still say Pale Ale, but it's fun to say IPA. So like that, I would think of it as advanced automation and focus on the operators of what they're currently using, talk to the operators, find venues to talk to the operators like the large national conferences of ASHA, NIC, or Leading Age. That's 6 large meetings in a year. And NIC, NIC, and Leading Age, Argentum, and ACA. And go and actually set up meetings and talk to providers. And there's ways to do it where you can really get to them. And then and they do sessions, and people are willing to share, like the woman I was with yesterday, who's using AI in boring, or you might find in boring areas, and that's to, in a refined way, identify markets that have deep pools for their product type, which is more middle market, to incorporate AI into their marketing tools online. But it gets really nuanced, and they're very good at it. And they have a chat bot, for example, that comes from one company. And then it's the back office stuff, the payables, or the whole rev cycle at a senior living community, their CRM system, and so on. So they're either developing themselves, and I ask her, and they've developed X themselves, and then they have they've identified companies that work for them, and then they get the companies to talk to each other through, i.e. interoperability. So learning and listening to what are the needs, what are the true needs, and then you can, though, jump ahead. So nobody could have predicted, or a few smart people did, that AI would have jumped so far ahead as it did. And so you can be projecting, does your idea, when I run into entrepreneurs in healthcare, they have great ideas, but they haven't thought through the go-to-market strategy well enough, and they haven't thought it.
Right.
They've only heard about the addressable market. They haven't really broken it down. I just rattled off those conferences. Well, the folks that know the business know a couple of those are more not-for-profit CCRC centric, which is Leading Age. A couple of those are more IL/AL memory care centric, which is ASHA and NIC. And ACA is nursing, and Argentum is more IL/AL memory care. So you have to understand those audiences, and there's different owners and different motivations. So really being prepared to think about what your addressable market is. And then, as I've said at your conferences many times, once you're go-to-market, the sales gestation period and cycle will be dramatically, underline the words, dramatically longer than you think. And that is what everyone underestimates and underfunds every time. So that's super strong advice to anyone wanting to sell into the senior living and care market. If you're going B2C, and you've got a few folks that are doing that, Mary, that's not my expertise, and I'm always interested to hear how do you pull that off, and how do you make that successful? Because once you're C, you're talking to millions of people at one time, usually via the internet, and that's a whole different strategy.
Safely, you just had a big financing, correct? And then Virtue Sense is doing really well. That's one of your portfolio companies. Do you want to comment on those companies? That's
right. In the area of fall prevention, and driven or enabled by AI, there's over 100 companies in this space, but 2 that are doing very well in particular are Virtue Sense, one of the Ziegler linkage fund portfolio companies, and Safely You, who we did review, and it just didn't work out to invest in. And on Safely You, they happen to be in the press this week because they just raised $43 million from a number of investors And similarly, Virtue Sense has done a number of raises. So the market, everyone understands that fall prevention or falls are a major issue, especially for very frail seniors. It can lead to death faster than you think. It's a very popular space, and capital has flowed to it, and it's being accepted and utilized by senior living and care providers in both skilled nursing, where Virtue Sense gets used, and AL and memory care, where Safely You gets used, and then Virtue Sense gets used in the intensive care settings at hospitals. So it's been great to see those play out.
Yes, wonderful trends. I'm giving a speech on the topic of mobility next week in Mexico on the World Cruise Ship and talking about the market. So we'll incorporate those ideas into it.
You've heard me say, I believe somebody over time, and the companies we mentioned have said this, will figure out how to build a platform and a brand to go from healthy aging, but in particular mobility, to a risk of fall assessment early, which I know I heard another company out promoting that, all the way through to fall prevention through end of life. You can see that coming, and it will work. And the goal is to avoid falls to the latest possible point in your life. You can't totally prevent it, but to avoid it to the latest possible point by living healthy in an active way. And these companies absolutely work and help.
Dan, where are the best places for people to go for more info?
For related to Ziegler, you can go to Ziegler.com. We have a very good website for the Ziegler Linkage Fund portfolio companies. You can go to ZieglerLinkageFunds.com. We have 35 portfolio companies easily laid out that cover most of the spaces. And then on the topics we've listed here, of course, with Google today, it's pretty easy to get breakdowns just by Googling technology-enabled fall prevention as an example.
Mary, the competition was pretty intense at CES for the AgeTech Collaborative from AARP, AgeTech After Dark pitch event. We are happy to have VP Amelia Hay with us. Hi, Amelia, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Amelia, you are one of my very favorite collaborators. You've just had such an impact. It's been wonderful, as they say in England, brilliant to work with you. So before we talk about the pitch competition, let's give everyone an update on the collaborative and how you and the team have grown it.
Yeah, I mean, last year was a stellar year, I have to say. We have, having just started in 2021, at this point, we have over 540 participant groups in the collaborative. Of that number, 180 are startups. And I think that's just a really great testament to all the hard work that the team has been able to bring in that many startups and support them with all of those companies surrounding it. That 540 also includes 100 VC firms. So I think it's we set out to build an ecosystem to support these startups, and I really think that we are doing a great job at that.
Yes, I mean, clearly, and we were so delighted to be there in December and to see and have so many people point to their name on the wall. So you'll have to show us that wall. But let's talk a little bit about CES in Las Vegas. And wow, you had a pickleball court, you had record numbers of people coming. The impact the collaborative is having is just amazing. And the year's off to a great start. So you had 5 impressive finalists for the AgeTech After Dark pitch competition. Can you tell us more about it and the energy, and then who won?
So yeah, we had, every year so far for the last 3 years, we've thrown a pitch event in the evening at a restaurant, and we had 5 finalists. It's an age tech theme, so it spans the gamut. We had sleep apnea, we had eye movement, and mental resilience. And it's a fun event, and it's a way for us to kind of celebrate age tech solutions, as well as putting on a pitch event, sourcing startups. And the winner was actually a company called Lumia, that has developed this tracking, biometric tracking, and it's something that you put on your ear, because the ear, and we've known this from other solutions that we have in the collaborative, the ear is actually a very, such a sensitive area that it can actually track biometrics at a more sensitive level than either a ring or something on your wrist.
I know there have been like earphones, headphones that people can wear that, if you're running, it can actually track your heart rate through your ears as well. But this, it's worn on the ear, and from what I understand, it actually tracks blood flow to the head.
That's right, because it's actually there's some very fine blood vessels in the ear, and it's actually tracking that. I mean, they're not in the collaborative, but I had a startup pitch to me where they're tracking your blood oxygen levels through this, and it's clinical grade. It's considered clinical grade in the ear versus, like on the finger, or it's just so sensitive, and it can pick up a lot more in terms of biometrics.
And their focus in using the technology, what are they trying to detect? What
So
are the benefits?
this is the thing that I love about it. They're tracking you, and it's kind of like an alarm system where they're able to sense whether or not you may be at risk for falling. So it's not something where you've fallen and then you need some kind of solution to help you. It's actually a pre-falling, which is an area where that's really where you want to be, so that you can prevent falls from happening, as opposed to helping someone who's already fallen.
Yes, I'm doing a talk next week in Mexico on the World Cruise Ship, and I'm doing one talk on mobility. So we'll be sure to include Lumia in that. And the winner receives $10,000, but that's one part of the value they receive. Tell us more about the value that the AgeTech Collaborative brings.
So for all of our pitch events, this is the way that we start looking at startups and start thinking about whether or not they would be a good fit for our accelerator program, and hopefully get an invitation into our accelerator program. Now, you don't have to actually win to be considered, but Lumia is clearly, we're very excited about Lumia, and we are looking at the other startups as well, as possible inclusion into the accelerator program.
I just want to call out a couple of the things that came up in Vegas. So there was a panel with Scott Frisch and Andy. They talked about the investor initiative. Do you want to say a little bit about that? Because this is Longevity Deal Talk.
Yeah, so it's called the AgeTech Investor Network, and essentially the way I describe it is we wanted to offer another asset to our collaborative startups. And one of the ways that we're able to do that with the AgeTech Investor Network is it's an investment platform for angels and small family offices. And some other people who might not have a way to invest, like corporate offices that don't have a way to invest. But our thinking was that there's AgeTech is such an interesting place to invest, and it's kind of been a little bit difficult with typical venture firms. However, angels and small family offices are usually mission oriented, and they're hunters, so they're kind of looking for them. They don't know where to go, and basically this AgeTech Investor Network is servicing them. Well, come look at this portfolio, because we have amassed quite a bit number of companies with AgeTech solutions, so that you can kind of select which ones you would like to invest in. I think it eliminates the hunting aspect, and I'm matching these mission-oriented people who want to invest in solutions like this for other reasons other than profitability with these AgeTech founders.
And also companies like Trust and Will, which is in the collaborative, has been able to leverage some of the other parts of AARP to build their business, and people can see those connections. So one other thing I want to call out is the Panasonic relationship.
I'm very pleased with the enterprises that we've been able to get into our collaborative, because they're very large enterprises that have a big presence, but they're now interested in either wellness or health or aging. And the Panasonic Well relationship started because they came to CES in 2023, and were blown away by what we had done with a smart home with our startups. And luckily, they were at a place where they were trying to grow and expand, and we were lucky enough to be chosen to help them with their wellness challenge last year, where the purse prize was $1 million, and help them source startups that they're looking for. And we were very lucky to be involved. And I look forward to further working with them, because while our missions are aligned, they're also kind of in different areas. So I think all boats rise in that place where we can both get benefits from it and make an impact in the areas we are focused on separately.
Tell us about what lies ahead this year after such a stellar year last year for the AgeTech Collaborative.
Okay, so this year we are trying to show up in different places. I see this as an expansion year of trying to figure out, okay, we've got a great collaborative, I've got a great message, I want to get it out and stretch out our wings a little bit further, maybe going towards conferences that focus on hospitals or medical professionals. We're going to the Super Bowl, to the Lee Steinberg party, and we are going to have a presence at their Brain Health Lounge at the Super Bowl party. We're very excited about that. Just to kind of, increase the awareness of age tech in general, and that there are forces out there, groups of people that are trying to make a difference in making aging easier for everyone.
Well, we look forward to seeing you in June at our Venture Summit. You're our title sponsor. We look forward to selling out with lots of investors. We'll be taking the message of the AgeTech Collaborative to Mexico next week as we're on the cruise. And we'd like to show the wall with all the logos. So maybe you could show us a picture of the wall. And congratulations to you and Andy and the entire team there, Amelia. Tell us where people can go for more information.
So we do have a website. It's the agetechcollaborative.org website, and we try to put our key events up there. I always have the pitch events there. So if startups are interested, there's always one pitch event open, because we're trying to really find the best of the best. And there's a lot of information out there.
Thank you, Amelia. AI is playing a role in so much new technology arriving to improve the lives of older adults. Who better to talk about that than Aging and Health Technology Watch Principal Analyst Laurie Orlov. Hi, Laurie.
Hi, Fred. How you doing?
It's great to see you, and you've done it again. Your research paper titled Market Overview 2025, Technology for Aging, is something everyone in our audience will want to read line by line. As Fred mentioned, AI is really on the forefront here. So let's get an overview.
Well, I think the important thing about this report is to note that the changes in the population are happening, that people do not want to, generally speaking, move into facilities. They want to age at home, that the percentage of people living alone is going up, and the folks with chronic conditions, also going up. And so it's all a convergence of sort of a perfect storm of business opportunity for those companies that are involved in helping older adults stay well or get well, or at least be monitored in terms of their health conditions, especially when they leave the hospital, because the statistics, for example, on people who suffer falls, they go in the hospital and they never return to full independent living. It's important to understand, first of all, that numbers of falls are going up. That's one of the problems. And the other technologies that I think are interesting and really inherent in AI is the ability to predict trends, and therefore data about the people and their behaviors, as well as their health conditions, all combined together to enable you to predict who is likely, for example, to suffer a fall. And it's pretty important to know that, because you can actually do some prevention things to help people avoid a fall, one of which, of course, is exercise and strength training. So that's an important point. The other, I think, points that came out of this report, really, if you look at the predictions at the end of it, it is true that AI is going to be everywhere, and we may not even notice that it is AI. It's going to be part of everything. But the other thing is a problem because the technology market is still fragmented. And if you look through the list of companies at the AARP Collaborative and any other place you want to look, startup companies generally think of themselves as sort of lone rangers. And they don't immediately look around for who is either like them or compatible with them. And part of the characteristic of us as we age is we may start out being very mobile. We may start out not having certain chronic conditions, but over time we may acquire some of those. And for every time we go through a life change that we have to start shopping again is the flaw in this market. And so I speak to people about this. I'm now a little bit involved with the IEEE effort to define the world of age tech, and I've made the same case with them. And I maybe speak in the fall at one of their events. I'm not sure, but the important thing to understand is shopping for every situation that occurs in your life as you age not only is impractical, but if you look at the market of technologies out there, it's confusing. And there's no one who vets it into buckets that are particularly well thought through in terms of the life cycle of people. And I think that's a big deal. So I'll stop there. Feel free to push me in some other direction.
Actually, I'm working on a speech on mobility on these different, the different devices you need at different times,
Right.
But let's go back. Is it 1 in 3 that fall in their 60s? And the boomers are now at the top end are 79, right?
Right.
And then that increases in the 80s as acuity increases, right?
Yes, it definitely increases. I don't remember whether it's 1 in 3. I will search for that exact statistic, but the percentage of people falling has gone up by a percentage point this year from last year. And so clearly,
just as you age, these inevitable things like bone density loss, there's 100 million people with different types of bone density loss. And so this strength training, water aerobics, anything you can do to build muscle, and how many are grandparents and chasing after toddlers and wanting to keep up with them, and that requires you to stay more mobile, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about 1/3 of all homeowner households are now headed by someone 65 and older. And this jumped out. And then, of course, women living alone, 43% of women 75 and older are living alone. Now, 75 doesn't seem old to me because I'm 76, but I do worry about people that are living alone that may need help.
Yeah, and the important thing about so if you look at the statistics on men aging versus women aging, because that's in one of the charts in this report, and I thought it's pretty interesting. So at a certain age, the men apparently remarry. They divorce or they become widowed and they remarry, whereas the women appeared not to. Or not to in the same numbers that men do. And so you've got women in their later years, and some of them are very happy about that. They really didn't want that guy anymore, and they're thrilled he's gone. But it's important to note that these become part of the population of people living alone. And some ideas never really, so far as I can tell, took off, like the idea of co-housing. It didn't really take off. So, and the desire people have to stay in their own homes, that has, if anything, increased, and that the home itself may be in need of modifications and not compatible with living in it. I've seen this firsthand myself, watching others in homes that have become difficult to either get into because they're on a second floor and they require stairs, or the bathroom is on the second floor, the bedroom is on the second floor, and it's all a challenge. And I have looked at pictures lately, and this is an interesting thing to think about in the context of people aging and mobility. I've seen some pretty state-of-the-art pictures of elevators. And the in-home elevator has come a long way. And it's still 25 to 35,000, I'm sure, to put one in, depending on where you live. But the idea that you would preserve your ability to stay in this house you really shouldn't be in anymore because you put in an elevator is interesting.
So one other topic that came up in the report that I find really intriguing, and I've been looking at this a long time, is the use of technology in the 80 plus. So
Yes.
the 80 plus doesn't necessarily love health portals to go in and check out their information.
Yeah, you have to give kudos to AARP for doing this. They extended their survey this time about technology use into the population age 80 plus. And sure enough, if you look at the graph that they produced, the interest in the belief that health-related technologies could actually help them is less than those in the younger age groups. So what that tells me is there's people out there, and they're likely to be AARP members, that need some convincing about the utility of health-related technologies to help them manage their various health conditions and statuses. And I think that's pretty important because at the moment, the 80 plus in that survey did not believe that technology could help enable a healthy life. And I think the other important point about technology now, compared to 10, 15 years ago, we used to have places we could go, which we could look things up, and we could talk to people who gave us advice. And there was all kinds of people options in the process of learning what you needed to do in your life. If you look at the shortage of physicians now, the time it takes to get a doctor's appointment, the availability of in-person guidance or advice in many settings around the country, we're being pushed online. And we need to provide guidance on how to navigate this thicket of information online to help us get what we need. And I'm not surprised the 80 plus people are doubtful. And also their adoption of some technologies is lower than the younger populations. So I think AARP has its work cut out for them, as do all of the organizations that serve older adults.
Right. You see
And the
local
tech
library-
companies too, right?
The tech companies definitely have their work cut out for them.
I mean,
Well,
if you have a smart switch that works 90% of the time, that's not good enough.
It's not good enough. And also, if you have, my favorite example is you have a portable device, whether it's an iPad or an iPhone or something else, and you don't know where on the screen to touch to make something happen. And you've seen this with iPad users. I've seen this often with people banging around at different parts of the screen. The screen doesn't lay itself out nicely into a grid and say, tap here. If you
so
want
training will always be a market opportunity. And I think the Geek Squad at Best Buy is beginning to tap into that area.
Well, put in perspective for us, Laurie, where the greatest opportunities are. And this is really important for our audience in terms of technology and AI.
Yeah, I think the greatest opportunity is going to be in the world of safety and wellness. Home safety, personal safety, wearables, anything that you can do to help you be safe, stay safe, make your home safe. All of those things about safety are really important. And then the other really important thing are the wellness apps, but and disease management and medication management and fitness trackers and health wearables and so forth. But in order to have access to all of those, you really do need the communications technologies, and you need to master the smartphone, and you need to master the iPad, and you need to master the search tools you might have on a PC. It doesn't do us any good that everybody remains a novice in these things. They must develop a level of mastery because it's what stands between them and enough information to be well, stay well, get better.
Whether they're managing their communication with family or their health or
Exactly.
So what are some of the findings when it comes to scams and fraud? Technology, unfortunately, I suppose is playing a role here too. And I think people are concerned with the growth in AI. There'll be more scams.
And the scams are very creative now. The one I think is the most creative is the one that captures, for example, we're talking right now, but something could capture my voice on the internet. I'm all over the internet speaking about this thing or that thing. It could capture my voice and use my voice to initiate an activity that could have been a voice-enabled activity that I wouldn't want to have initiated. That's part of the grandparents scam, where a child or grandchild actually sounds like the real grandchild because their voice has been captured in a conversation and is used to get the grandparent to do something they shouldn't do, which could be transfer money. So that voice scams, I think, are the next breakthrough in scam technology. But the important thing about scam technology we need to understand is they're always ahead of us. They have, you talk about innovation labs in organizations around the United States. They have innovation labs, and they're always a step ahead. If you look at the Federal Trade Commission and the FCC and all the material that they have on scams, they're always behind. The next scam is out there. It's waiting to take money from us, and we need to become very sensitized to how our money is transferred and used. And authorizations need to be verified before moving any money. And now, at this point, now we have to authorize even logging into anything. We have new forms of password generation, and we have all kinds of ways to irritate ourselves. But what we don't seem to have is a good way to verify the authorization of the movement of money. So,
Really, really smart. Are there certain technologies, Laurie, or trends that you expect to see gain a lot of traction this year? Obviously, you talked about the speed at which AI is moving.
yeah, I think so. One of the technologies that can be AI enabled, we're going to see a lot more of, and that is motion, gestures. And that showed up at CES, the idea that you don't actually have to type and you may not have to speak. You may be able to move a hand in a direction or make something happen with a gesture. And that's going to be a very important for some individuals who have issues speaking. So
We
gestures,
see a lot of that on the road here in New Jersey.
yeah, you do say, yeah, not the nice kind of gestures. I think the other important trend is that in-home healthcare is expanding. And will continue to expand. Hospitals are closing in rural areas all over the US. Walk-in clinics are expanding, but also concierge care is expanding. I actually just called up a particular type of doctor the other day, and when the person answered the phone, the answer was, oh, by the way, right off the bat, we need to tell you, we don't take insurance. And I guess that's a trend. This person wanted to make sure I understood that we don't take insurance, and it gave me the opportunity to hang up at that point. I didn't hang up, and so we moved on in the conversation. But I think that's part of the whole. It's an aspect of concierge medicine. It's also a fee for service. There is a fee for my service. I'm going to charge that fee. Forget the insurance intermediaries. These may be trends that grow over time.
And I think a lot of people are taking for their own health and wellness with strength training and with alternative medicine and different treatments. So there's been an increase in that. Laurie, you list a lot of companies at the end of your report to pay attention to. Again, it's a piece of great work. All of our listeners on Longevity Deal Talk should read this report. We encourage everyone to follow you, and congratulations on another excellent effort.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mary. And thank you, Fred.
The website for more is ageinplacetech.com. Thank you, Laurie, and to Amelia and Dan. Mary, we packed a lot into this edition of What's Next Longevity Deal Talk, and you've been packing to continue some adventures in the coming days. Tell us about it.
Yes, 22 years ago, I went to Wharton and I had a set of slides to explain the longevity market. And there was a young woman in the audience, Natasha Ashton, and she ended up being a finalist in our competition, along with her husband, built a company called Pep Plan. They sold it for over $100 million. And she bought a condominium on a cruise called The World. And The World, I'm going on The World next week, sailing from Puerto Vallarta to Zihuatanejo, and I'm giving 3 talks. One on my updated book, Turning Silver into Gold, about the market trends. 2 on caregiving, a reprise of the things we learned at our December conference. And then the 3rd is mobility. So I'm very interested in the interview you just did on the exoskeleton and everything that's in the mobility space. So I will be sailing, first time I've ever been on a cruise, first time I've ever lectured on a cruise, all about longevity deal talk topics.
One of the companies that has really been getting a lot of attention is our sponsor, AAMBA, providing technology to enable responsive, personalized, and effective care. Discover how AAMBA can benefit your facility, your residents, their families, and caregivers. Find them at ambahealth.com. That's AMBA. We thank you for taking the time to watch or listen. Remember, you can always find us at maryfurlong.com/podcast.